Adrian Kale was not the kind of man who sought fame or recognition. Once, he had been a celebrated violinist on Earth, performing in grand concert halls that echoed with applause. But those days felt like a distant memory now, buried under years of regret and self-imposed isolation. His music, once a bridge to connect hearts, had become a reminder of everything he had lost. And so, he had left Earth, seeking solace in the farthest corner of the galaxy, Lyra Nova, a quiet space station orbiting a dim blue star. Lyra Nova was a melting pot of alien cultures, a place where beings from countless worlds came together to trade, share stories, or simply escape their own troubles. For Adrian, it was perfect. No one asked questions about his past. No one cared why a human violinist chose to live among aliens who barely understood his instrument. He lived in a modest corner of the station, spending his days playing his violin in solitude. Sometimes, curious passersby would stop to listen, an insectoid trader clicking its mandibles in curiosity, or a gelatinous being pulsating with rhythmic light in time with his melodies. Adrian played for them without expecting anything in return. His music was his language, a way to speak without words. One evening, as Adrian played near a large observation window overlooking the stars, a figure approached him. It was unlike any he had seen before. Tall and slender, the being's skin shimmered with a silvery hue, its long robes flowing like liquid light. Two luminous eyes, glowing faintly purple, studied him intently. It spoke in a melodic voice, its words translated into English by the station's universal communicator. "You are the Earth musician," the figure said. Its tone was calm, almost reverent, the one who paints with sound. Adrian paused mid-note, surprised by the description. He had never thought of himself as an artist. "I'm just a violinist," he replied, his voice quiet. "Who are you?" "I am Envoy Talira, a messenger from Sci-Fi," the figure said, bowing gracefully. "My queen has heard of your music. She wishes to meet you." Adrian frowned, lowering his violin. "Your queen? How would she even know about me? I've never left this station." Talira's glowing eyes softened. "Word of your music has traveled far. Traders speak of the human who plays songs that bring images to the mind and feelings to the heart. Queen Elia is blind, but she sees the world through sound. She believes you may help her in ways no one else can." Adrian felt a pang of doubt. He wasn't sure he could help anyone, let alone a queen from another world. He had come to Lyra Nova to escape, not to involve himself in matters beyond his understanding. "I don't think I'm the right person for this," he said, shaking his head. "I'm just a man trying to keep to himself." Talira tilted her head, as if considering his hesitation. "Queen Elia does not make such requests lightly. She sees potential in you, Adrian Kale. Your music has already reached her heart from across the stars. Will you not give her the chance to hear it directly?" Adrian hesitated, his fingers tightening around his violin's neck. He had spent so long running from his past, convinced that his music could no longer make a difference. But there was something in Talira's voice, an unspoken urgency, a hope that stirred a small ember in his chest. Could his music still have meaning, even here among the stars? "What would I have to do?" Adrian asked cautiously. "Travel to Sci-Fi," Talira replied. "Perform for the queen. Share your gift. She will explain the rest." The simplicity of the request caught Adrian off guard. It wasn't a demand, nor did it come with strings attached. It was an invitation, one that felt both humbling and daunting. He glanced out the window at the vast expanse of stars. Somewhere out there was a queen who believed in his music, even without having heard it herself. Adrian sighed, a mix of uncertainty and reluctant curiosity settling over him. "All right," he said quietly. "I'll go." Talira's luminous eyes brightened, a sign of gratitude. "You will not regret this, Adrian Kale. The queen will be most pleased." As the envoy departed, Adrian stood in silence, staring at the violin in his hands. The last time he had played for someone important, it had ended in failure and heartbreak. Could he find redemption on an alien world for a queen who saw the universe in sound? Only time would tell. The stars outside seemed to twinkle with quiet encouragement, as if urging him forward. For the first time in years, Adrian felt a spark of purpose. Perhaps it was time to stop hiding and let his music speak once more. The journey to Xyla Eris was unlike anything Adrian Kell had ever imagined. The transport ship carried him through luminous nebulae and star systems glowing with colors that felt almost alive. The crew, a mix of alien species, spoke in hushed tones about Queen Elia, describing her as wise, enigmatic, and beloved by her people. Adrian listened quietly, unsure of what to expect. He had agreed to this journey on impulse, but doubts lingered in his mind. What could his music possibly offer a queen from another world? When the ship finally descended onto Xyla Eris, Adrian's breath caught in his throat. The planet was stunning. Its surface shimmered with bioluminescent forests that glowed in vibrant hues of blue, green, and violet. Rivers of silver light twisted through the landscape like molten stars. The sky above was a canvas of swirling colors, shifting and blending in a way that seemed almost magical. Yet, despite the beauty, Adrian felt a pang of sadness as he thought of Queen Elia. To be blind in a world so vivid, it was a thought he couldn't quite fathom. A grand procession awaited him at the landing site, and Voitalira, who had accompanied him, led Adrian through towering crystal structures that sparkled like prisms in the sunlight. The air was filled with a soft, harmonic hum, as though the planet itself was alive with music. Adrian clutched his violin case tightly, feeling out of place among the elegant figures who watched him with curious eyes. At last, they entered the royal palace, a structure that seemed carved from pure light. The walls pulsed faintly, their glow reflecting the emotions of those within. Adrian was led into a vast chamber, its ceiling high and adorned with softly glowing tendrils that swayed gently, like underwater flora. At the center of the room sat Queen Elia. She was unlike anyone Adrian had ever seen. Tall and graceful, her silvery skin shimmered with a soft radiance. Her hair, long and flowing, seemed to ripple like liquid moonlight. But it was her eyes that held Adrian's attention, large, luminous, and unseeing, yet filled with a quiet depth that seemed to pierce through him. She turned her head slightly as he approached, as though sensing his every movement. "Adrian Kell," she said, her voice a melody in itself. "The human musician who paints with sound. Welcome to Xyla Eris." Adrian hesitated, unsure how to respond. He had met dignitaries before, but none like her. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing awkwardly. "It's an honor to be here." Elia smiled faintly, her expression serene. "The honor is mine. I have heard whispers of your music carried across the stars. They say your violin speaks of places and emotions that words cannot capture. I wish to experience this for myself." Adrian felt a surge of nerves. The idea of performing for a queen, especially one who relied on sound to see, was daunting. But there was no turning back now. He opened his violin case and carefully lifted the instrument, the familiar weight grounding him. "What would you like me to play?" he asked, his voice steadier than he felt. "Play something from your home," Elia said. "Show me Earth through your music." Adrian nodded, closing his eyes for a moment to focus. Then he began to play. The first notes were soft, tentative, like a sunrise slowly breaking over the horizon. He wove a melody that spoke of rolling green hills, golden fields swaying in the wind, and the deep, endless blue of Earth's oceans. As the music flowed, he added the quiet hum of rain on a rooftop, the crackle of a fire on a cold night, and the laughter of children playing in the distance. Elia sat motionless, her head tilted slightly, as though absorbing every nuance of the performance. The room grew silent except for the sound of Adrian's violin. Even the faint hum of the palace walls seemed to fade, as though the building itself was listening. When the final note lingered in the air, Adrian lowered his bow, his heart pounding. He glanced at Elia, unsure of her reaction. For a moment, she said nothing, her face unreadable. Then she smiled, a radiant, genuine smile that lit up her features. "Beautiful," she said softly. "Your music paints pictures more vivid than I ever imagined. I saw hills that breathed with life, oceans that danced with the wind, and skies that sang. You have given me a glimpse of your world, Adrian Kale. And for that, I am grateful." Adrian felt a warmth he hadn't experienced in years. For so long, he had played only for himself, believing his music no longer mattered. But here, in this alien palace, his violin had connected with someone in a way he had never thought possible. Elia leaned forward slightly. "You have a gift, Adrian, one that can bridge worlds. I sense there is much more to your music, and to you, than you realize. Will you share more with me in the days to come?" Adrian hesitated, then nodded. "If that's what you want, Your Majesty." "It is," she said simply. "And in return, perhaps I can help you see yourself in a new light, as you have done for me." As Adrian left the chamber, his violin still in hand, he felt a spark of hope he hadn't felt in years. Perhaps this journey would be more than he had ever expected. The days following Adrian's performance for Queen Elia were a blur. The Queen had requested that he stay on Xyla Eris for a while, to continue sharing his music with her, and in turn, learn more about her world. Adrian had initially planned to return to Lyra Nova after a short visit, but something about Elia's invitation stirred something within him. He couldn't quite explain it, but her openness and the way she listened to his music made him feel as though he could finally find a new purpose. Each morning, Adrian was escorted to the royal palace, where Elia eagerly awaited his next performance. In the evenings, they would talk for hours about Earth, about music, and about the worlds beyond their own. Elia's conversations were unlike anything Adrian had ever experienced. She spoke not just with words, but with the deep understanding that came from years of perceiving the world through sound alone. The way she described her planet's beauty, the gentle hum of its cities, the songs of its creatures, was unlike any description Adrian had ever heard. To her, the world was a symphony of endless sound, each note painting a different aspect of her life. Over time, Adrian began to feel a deep connection to her, a bond that was both professional and personal. He found himself looking forward to their talks, to sharing new pieces of music, and to learning about her struggles. Elia's reign was not easy. Her blindness had been both a gift and a challenge. While it allowed her to perceive the world in ways others could not, it also created a distance between her and her people. Many had doubts about her ability to lead, questioning whether someone who could not see her kingdom in the traditional sense could truly understand it. But Elia had learned to see through other means. She could hear the way people spoke, the rhythm of their voices, and the changes in their tone. She could sense the emotions behind the words, even when they were unspoken. It was a skill that had made her an exceptional leader, one who could unite her people despite their differences. But it also made her aware of the fractures within her kingdom, the growing divide between the rich and poor, the traditionalists and progressives. "You see things differently," Adrian said one evening, as he played a new composition for her, a piece inspired by the city of New York, with its chaotic energy, rushing trains, and distant sirens. "Your world, your people, they must hear your voice in a way that is unlike anything they've heard before." Elia nodded, her eyes closed as she absorbed the music. "I understand them through their words, their emotions, the subtle shifts in their voices. But there is so much I can't grasp. I rely on those around me to describe what I cannot see. And though they try, it is never enough. The world is so vast, and I can't help but feel disconnected." Adrian paused, his fingers resting on the strings of his violin. For the first time, he felt a deep understanding of her isolation. He had always believed that music could bring people together, but Elia's situation was different. She was a queen who led a kingdom. But the very thing that allowed her to connect with her people, the richness of sound, also kept her from truly experiencing the visual beauty of her world. "I think I understand," Adrian said quietly. "You want more than just words, don't you? You want to see the world as others do." Alia smiled, her expression softening. "Yes, I want to experience it fully. To feel the sun on my face, to see the colors of the sky at dawn, to see the faces of the people who love me and those who doubt me. I want to understand them through their eyes, not just their voices." Hadrian's heart swelled with compassion. He had come to this planet thinking that he was the one who needed help, that his music would serve as a way to escape the past. But now he realized that his music could do more than that. It could help Elia. It could help her see the world in a way she had never been able to before, through the very sounds that had always been her guide. "I can't give you sight," Adrian said softly, his voice full of determination. "But maybe I can help you see the world through my music, not just with your ears, but with your heart." Elia looked at him, her unseeing eyes full of warmth. "I would be honored," she replied. In the days that followed, Adrian worked tirelessly, composing pieces that reflected the sights he had seen on Earth, the quiet beauty of forests, the grandeur of mountains, the vastness of oceans. He used his violin to paint pictures in sound, drawing on everything he had ever known to create something that could touch Elia's heart. Each piece he played was a step closer to helping her see her world in a way that had always been out of reach, and in turn, Adrian began to heal. The music he had once played only for himself now had a greater purpose. It was no longer a tool for escape. It was a bridge between two worlds, one seen, one heard. And as their bond deepened, Adrian realized something else. The loneliness he had felt for so long was beginning to fade. The sound of his violin was no longer just a way to express his sorrow. It had become a way to connect, to build something new, something beautiful. As Adrian spent more time with Queen Elia, he began to understand the depth of her unique perspective. Every morning, he would arrive at the royal palace to find her already waiting, her presence calm and poised as always. But what struck him the most was how she saw the world through sound. It wasn't just her ability to hear deeply. It was how she understood everything around her with the full range of her senses. For Elia, sound was not just noise. It was a language, a way to interpret the world. Hadrian had always thought of his violin as an instrument of expression, but to Elia, his music was more than that. It was a tool for perception, a way to experience things that she could never visually witness. She often told him how she could feel the world through the vibrations and rhythms in the air, a strange mix of emotion and image that no one else could fully understand. One evening, as Adrian played a piece he had written specifically for her, Elia listened with rapt attention. He had drawn on the concept of Earth's changing seasons, the cold bite of winter, the warm embrace of spring, the golden haze of summer, and the crispness of autumn. It was a piece meant to show how nature transformed with time, how the earth itself seemed to breathe and shift. As he played, Elia's expression grew more intense. Her unseeing eyes moved slightly, as if she were following each note with a deep concentration. Adrian wondered what she could be seeing in her mind as she listened. Could she picture the seasons through the music? Could she feel the winter chill in the cold, distant notes, or the warmth of summer in the rich, flowing tones? When the music ended, Elia sat in silence for a long moment. Then, with a soft smile, she spoke. "I feel them all," she said, her voice filled with awe. "I feel the cold of winter, the warmth of summer, and the sweet promise of spring. But it is not just the seasons I feel. I can hear the pulse of the earth beneath my feet, the wind as it shifts across the plains, the hum of life as it grows. Your music tells me more than I could have ever imagined." Adrian stood still, surprised by her words. He had never thought of his music in this way. To him, it had always been an emotional outlet, a way to express the feelings he could not put into words. But to Elia, his music was not just emotional, it was alive. "You have a gift, Adrian," Elia continued, her voice quiet yet filled with depth. I do not simply hear your music. I feel it. It paints pictures in my mind. Pictures that are sharper, clearer, more vibrant than anything I could ever see. You do not understand it fully yet, but your music is more powerful than you know." Adrian was taken aback. He had always thought of himself as a simple musician, someone who played for the joy of it, or to escape the past. He had never imagined that his music could have such an impact. But as he looked at Elia, who had no sight but could see the world so vividly, he realized something profound. Maybe his music was a bridge not just between two people, but between different ways of understanding the world. Earth was a place of color, of sight, but to Elia, the world was shaped by sound. The rustling of trees, the sound of birds in flight, the hum of a distant river, all of these things were as real to her as any visual image was to someone else. In that moment, Adrian understood that music could be a universal language, one that connected people, even across vast differences. "What do you hear when you listen to Earth through my music?" Adrian asked, genuinely curious. "What do you see when I play?" Elia paused for a moment, her face thoughtful. "When you play, I hear the stories of your world. The long, winding roads that people walk, the quiet moments of solitude beneath a star-filled sky. But more than that, I hear your heart. I hear your pain, your joy, your longing. It speaks in every note. Your music isn't just Earth, it's you. It's your soul." Adrian's heart tightened. For so long, he had played his violin to hide from his past, to escape the pain he had carried with him. But now, with Elia's words, he realized something important. His music was not just an escape. It was a reflection of who he was, the story of his life, his struggles, and his triumphs. And most of all, it was something that could bring people together, even across the stars. Elia continued, "And now, Adrian, I want to show you how your music fits into the greater harmony of the universe. You see, my people, many of them, cannot hear in the way I do. They see the world, but they do not understand the deeper sounds beneath the surface. I believe that your music can teach them to listen, to feel, and to connect in ways they never have before." Adrian thought about her words long after their conversation ended. He had come to Xyla thinking that he was a broken man, someone who had lost his way. But now, he understood that his music had a power he hadn't recognized before. It was not just about healing himself. It was about healing others, about showing them a new way to see the world. And so, Adrian vowed to continue his music, not just for himself, but for Elia, for her people, and for the galaxy. The sound of his violin would be the thread that tied their worlds together. Through sound, he would help them understand each other, no matter where they came from or what they could see. Adrian had never expected to find himself as deeply involved in the political life of an alien world. Yet, as days passed on Scylla, it became clear that his music was beginning to play a vital role in the harmony of the planet, as much as it was healing his own wounds. Queen Elia's reign was challenged by many factions, and while her blindness had long been a source of doubt for some, Adrian's music was starting to shift the mood of the kingdom. It was a delicate balance. Elia was not only a ruler, she was a beacon of hope for her people. But as the queen had confided in Adrian, the challenges she faced were growing. There were whispers of unrest in the capital, growing dissatisfaction among the lower classes, and fears that the planet's rich resources were being mismanaged. The political divide between the old ways and the new was widening, and many doubted that the queen, who could not see the world through the same lens as they did, could handle the pressure. Despite this, Elia remained calm. Her faith in her people was unwavering, and her understanding of the situation was sharper than many realized. She relied on her connection with the people, hearing the nuances of their voices, the inflections that told her whether they spoke with genuine concern or hidden intentions. Yet even she admitted that something was missing. She had never fully been able to experience her people's lives as they did, their everyday struggles, their joys, their hopes. Adrian had noticed this in their conversations. His music, it seemed, had become more than a bridge between him and Elia. It was becoming a tool of unity, one that could transcend the barriers between the classes. He could sense that the queen wanted to do more, to act decisively, but her inability to see the subtle cues of the world around her often left her uncertain of how to approach certain matters. One day, Elia called Adrian to her private chambers. Her voice, though soft, carried a weight of urgency. "Adrian, I need your help," she said as soon as he entered. "I have been asked to address the Council of Elders, but I am uncertain of how to approach them. There are factions within the council that do not support my vision for the future. Some are clinging to old ways that no longer serve the people, while others wish to push forward too fast, ignoring the need for balance. They think I am too disconnected from the land and its people to make sound decisions." Adrian listened quietly. He knew that the stakes were high. Elia's leadership depended on the unity of her people, and the Council of Elders was a powerful force. The decisions they made would shape the future of Scylla Eris, and Elia's words would need to resonate with them, not just in their minds, but in their hearts. "You've always had the ability to connect with your people in ways I could never understand," Adrian said thoughtfully. "But perhaps you need something more. You've shown me how music can unite hearts, how it can convey meaning without words. What if you use the language of sound, the language of music, to speak to the council? Let them hear the truth of your vision, not just with their ears, but with their hearts." Elia's eyes, though unseeing, seemed to light up at his words. "What do you mean?" "I believe that your voice, your music, can transcend the barriers between you and them. If you play, not just speak, you can show them the world you envision, the one you want to build for your people. Music can speak to their souls. It can awaken their sense of connection to one another, to the land, and to you. If they hear your message, truly hear it, they may change their minds." Elia was silent for a long moment, her face thoughtful. Then she nodded. "Yes, I see now. You are right, Adrian. I have tried to speak their language of politics, but perhaps it is time I speak the language of the heart. Music is universal, after all. It has the power to break through the walls of doubt and fear." The plan was set. The following week, the Council of Elders convened in the Grand Hall, a massive chamber lined with polished stones that emitted a soft hum of energy. Elia would address them, not with words, but with music. Adrian would accompany her on his violin, playing the piece he had composed for her, a symphony that blended the sounds of the world, Earth and Scylla Eris together, into a powerful expression of unity and hope. When the time came, Adrian stood by Elia's side as the council gathered before them. The room fell silent as the queen raised her hand, signaling that she was ready to begin. Adrian, his heart racing, readied his violin. The weight of the moment was immense. He could feel the tension in the room, the skepticism, the uncertainty. But he also felt the deep, unwavering trust Elia had in him, and it gave him the courage to begin. As Adrian's bow met the strings, the music began, a blend of Earth's rich history and Scylla Eris' vibrant future. The music echoed throughout the hall, its sounds rising like waves, crashing gently against the hearts of those who listened. Adrian's violin told the story of Earth's seasons, of life cycles, of growth and change. But it also spoke of Scylla Eris, its bioluminescent forests, its rivers of light, and its people bound together by their shared history and aspirations. The music flowed through the room, filling the space with a profound, unspoken understanding. Elia's soft voice joined the melody, not in speech, but in the way she guided the rhythm. She played as much with her presence as Adrian did with his violin. By the time the final note lingered in the air, the silence was deafening. The members of the council had heard something they could not ignore. It was not just Elia's words they had listened to, it was the heartbeat of their world, the pulse of their future. The room was filled with a renewed sense of connection, a feeling that had been missing for too long. Elia lowered her hand, her voice calm but filled with authority. "I ask you all to remember that we are not separate. We are one people, one world. Let us move forward together, in harmony. And for the first time in a long while, the members of the council did not respond with hesitation or doubt. They saw, through music and sound, the vision of the Queen, a vision of unity, progress, and hope. The days after Elia's speech to the Council of Elders were filled with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. The Queen's bold move to use music to unite the people had been a success, but Adrian knew that the real test was still ahead. The political landscape of Scylla Eris had been shaken, but it would take more than a single performance to transform the hearts and minds of a divided world. Elia's reign depended on it. Adrian could feel the weight of her expectations, but also the weight of his own role in this new chapter. His music had become a symbol of unity, a force that transcended boundaries and divisions. He had come to Scylla Eris, thinking that he was simply helping a blind queen see the world. But now he realized that his music was becoming a tool for societal change. He was no longer just an outsider, a traveler. He was part of something far larger, something that could shape the future of an entire world. In the weeks that followed, Elia's leadership began to take on a new form. She had always been a queen who led with wisdom and compassion, but now she was also a symbol of resilience. She had faced doubt and skepticism, not only because of her blindness, but because of the deep divides within her own society. Yet, her willingness to embrace the power of music to heal and unite was beginning to shift the dynamics of her rule. Adrian spent more time with Elia, helping her refine her speeches and performances, guiding her as she prepared for new meetings with leaders from all across Scylla Eris. The music they created together was no longer just for the Queen. It was a message to the people. Each piece they composed carried a piece of the planet's story, blending Earth's traditions with the sounds of Scylla Eris in ways that no one had ever imagined. One afternoon, as Adrian and Elia sat in the royal garden discussing the next steps for their mission, Elia spoke quietly, her voice filled with both hope and concern. "Adrian," she began, "the Council of Elders may have been moved by our performance, but there are still factions that oppose my vision. There are those who do not believe in change, who think that our people should remain as they were, bound to the old ways. They fear the unknown, and they resist the idea of moving forward." Adrian nodded thoughtfully. He had seen the unrest that simmered beneath the surface of Scylla Eris. The planet was a world of incredible beauty and promise, but its people were divided. Some longed for progress, while others clung to tradition, fearing that their way of life might be lost forever. "I understand," Adrian replied, "but you've already shown them a glimpse of what's possible. The music you and I create is powerful. It speaks to something deep inside people, something universal. You're not just changing the way they see you. You're changing the way they see themselves." Elia looked at him, her expression soft but determined. "I believe that. But there's still so much work to be done. I cannot do it alone." Adrian smiled, feeling the weight of their shared responsibility. "You're not alone, Elia. You have me, and you have your people. Together, we can bridge the gaps." The very next day, the Queen summoned the leaders of the planet's various factions to a gathering in the Grand Hall. It was a bold move, one that required the full attention of Scylla Eris' most influential figures. This meeting would be the true test of whether Elia's music could bring them together, or whether the divisions would remain. As the leaders arrived, Adrian and Elia took their places at the center of the room. The tension was palpable. The air was thick with anticipation, and Adrian could sense the wariness in the room. There were those who had already accepted Elia's message, and those who were skeptical of her ability to lead. Elia rose to her feet, her voice calm but strong. "Today, we gather not as separate factions, but as one people. We all have our differences, but we share one common truth. We are bound to this world, and we must choose whether we will continue to live in division or whether we will rise together." Her words were met with silence, and Adrian could see the weight of her statement sink in. Then he lifted his violin, and the first note of their performance echoed through the room. The music began, soft at first, like a distant whisper, and then it built, growing in strength, filling the hall with a sense of urgency, of potential. The music was a story of Sci-Fi, its history, its struggles, and its hopes for the future. The leaders sat in silence, their faces a mix of contemplation and awe. The music carried with it the essence of the world, the beauty of its landscapes, the rhythm of its people, and the harmony that could be achieved when everyone worked together. As the final note lingered in the air, Elia spoke once more, her voice now full of certainty. Change is not easy. It never has been. But it is necessary. And it begins with us, right here, right now. We are the heart of this world, and we must learn to beat in unison, or we will fall apart. The room was still for a long moment, and then something remarkable happened. One by one, the leaders began to speak, not with anger or opposition, but with understanding. They saw, through the music, the possibility of a united Sci-Fi, a world where the past and the future could coexist, where old traditions could be honored while embracing progress. It wasn't a complete victory. The road ahead would still be long and fraught with challenges. But in that moment, something had shifted. Adrian could feel it, the first stirring of a new era, one where music, unity, and understanding would lead the way. As weeks passed, Adrian could feel the air of change sweeping across Sci-Fi. What began as a personal mission, helping a blind queen see the world through his music, had blossomed into something far more profound. Elia's leadership had transformed, and with the help of her people, the planet was beginning to heal the divides that had once seemed insurmountable. But despite all the progress, Adrian knew the real test was still to come. They had to prove that the unity they had built was not just a fleeting moment, but a lasting change. The Queen and Adrian had become symbols of hope. His music had become the heartbeat of a new era, one that transcended the barriers between the old and the new. Elia was no longer just the queen with a vision. She was the queen who had shown her people that even through the deepest divides, harmony could be achieved. However, their task was not yet finished. Sci-Fi was a complex world, and there were still factions that resisted change. The old guard still feared losing their power, and the more traditional communities worried about what the future might bring. They still held on to the belief that the world should not be altered, no matter how small the change might seem. One day, as Adrian walked through the royal palace, he overheard a conversation among several of the council members. Though the music had swayed many, there were still whispers of doubt. "Change is not the answer," one council member muttered, his voice filled with bitterness. "We need to stay the course. The old ways have served us well for centuries. Why should we abandon them?" Adrian felt a pang of worry. The words of the counselor echoed in his mind. What if the music wasn't enough? What if the vision that Elia had worked so hard for could be lost? He knew that for Elia's leadership to truly succeed, there had to be a breakthrough, a moment where every person on the planet could come together and understand the importance of unity. That breakthrough came unexpectedly. Elia, aware of the growing opposition, made a bold decision. She called for a massive public performance, a grand concert that would take place in the heart of the capital, where thousands of citizens would gather to listen, feel, and experience the music that had already begun to unite them. The queen herself would not just observe from a distance, she would participate. Adrian, who had grown close to Elia during their time together, was honored to be her guide. He had seen firsthand how powerful her presence had become. Her blindness had once been seen as a weakness, but now it was a symbol of her strength. She had never let her lack of sight define her, and it was through this strength that she had shown her people the true meaning of leadership. As the day of the concert approached, the atmosphere in the capital became electric. People from all walks of life were talking about the event. Some were excited, others uncertain. Adrian could sense the excitement and tension in the air. The future of Sci-Fi seemed to hang in the balance. On the day of the concert, The streets were filled with people heading toward the grand square. The palace had arranged for large speakers to amplify the music, and the square itself was decorated with colorful banners that reflected the planet's unique culture. The energy was infectious, and Adrian found himself caught up in the anticipation. Elia stood at the center of the stage, her posture strong, her presence commanding. Adrian stood beside her, violin in hand. The crowd was silent, waiting. And then, without a word, Adrian began to play. The music was a symphony, a blend of the sounds of Earth and HFY, two worlds that had come together in perfect harmony. Adrian's violin was the anchor, while Elia's voice joined in, not with words, but with the deep, resonant vibrations that she had mastered over the months. The music told a story of unity, of the struggles, the growth, and the hope that had brought them all together. As the music filled the square, something incredible happened. People, young and old, began to sway to the rhythm. The sounds resonated with them in a way that nothing else had. They began to see the world differently, not through their eyes, but through their hearts. The old divisions that had once separated them began to melt away, replaced by a shared understanding that transcended politics, class, and culture. Elia's eyes, though unseeing, seemed to shine with a quiet joy. Adrian could sense the depth of her connection to the people. She was no longer just a queen who led from the throne. She was a queen who felt her people's hearts, who knew them in a way that no other ruler had ever done before. As the final notes of the symphony echoed through the square, the crowd erupted into applause. It wasn't just the music they were applauding. It was the sense of unity, the recognition that they were all part of something greater. For the first time in a long while, the people of Scifi felt a collective bond, a connection that couldn't be broken by time, by politics, or by fear. Elia stood tall, her voice ringing out over the crowd. "This is our world," she said, her words carried by the wind. "We are not bound by sight alone, nor by the past. We are bound by something far stronger, the music that flows through all of us, the hope that unites us. Together, we can create a future where all are heard, all are seen, and all are valued." Adrian watched as the crowd cheered, their voices lifting into the air, a chorus of unity. It was more than just a victory for Elia. It was a victory for the people. The music had brought them together, and in that moment, they understood that they were not alone, that their voices, their hopes, their dreams were all part of the same symphony. And in that moment, Adrian realized something that had been growing within him since he first arrived on Scifi. He had come here to heal, to help a queen see through music. But what he hadn't known was that he was part of a larger, more beautiful story, a story of unity, of change, and of a future built on the shared harmony of all the people across worlds.